report. City Manager Barry, it is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It's my pleasure to bring you the September City Manager's Report, and we'll just go ahead and jump right in. Here are the important dates to remember for this next month. The Economic Development Community Stakeholders meetings on the 5th, or tomorrow, at 2 p.m. at the North Dakota State Fairgrounds. Military Affairs Committee is on the 6th at 12 at the Minot Air Force Base. The Joint Board meeting on the 6th. Library Merger meeting on the 10th. The North Dakota League of Cities annual conference, which myself and some of you will be attending in addition to some of the staff, will be held on the 13th through the 15th in Grand Forks. MADC board meeting on the 13th. Source River Flood Workshop will be over 2 days between the 18th and 19th of the month. The special city council meeting on the 18th, which is of course the budget reading, first budget reading, as well as the public hearing, will be in this council chambers at 6:30 on the 18th. Committee of the Whole will follow on the 25th and the 26th, and then finally the final reading of the budget will occur on, right now it's been scheduled for September 25th. We'll talk about that later in the agenda tonight because there is a recommendation to move that because of a conflict with the North Holst Fest activities. So that'll be something to discuss here a little bit later. All right, next. The budget has been something that, as you know very well, we've been continuing to make progress on. We did hold the Q&A. Our first hearing, as I mentioned, is on the 18th. President's budget message has been delivered to you already. It's in your inbox right now, so you want to pay attention to that. And then we do hope to finalize the budget, as I mentioned, sometime 26th or 27th right now. I think the recommendation will be the 26th, but that's open for discussion. As you know, we have been spending an enormous amount of time trying to get the word out and to get feedback and insights as it relates to our budget. We've done many public presentations between myself as well as the finance director. We've also met with the media, various sectors of the media, many times throughout the budget process. We've had about 21 or 22 calls, emails, or questions from visitors since the budget was presented on August the 6th. And we've developed a comprehensive website which can be reached through our city's website on the budget. It includes things like the frequently asked questions, the budget workshops, the presentations, the videos, the budget itself, and a number of other materials that are germane to the discussion. This is what I mentioned earlier, the final reading of the budget. We will talk about this. We do hope this isn't the crowd that appears, although we do understand there's a lot of emotion around this year's budget. But we do hope to have the final budget reading on the 26th, possibly the 27th, and again, we'll discuss that in a minute. Service consolidation is still something of conversation in our community. We're talking predominantly about the potential Parks and Rec and county libraries mergers. As it relates to the Parks and Recreation program of the city, there are ongoing discussions occurring and some additional consultation with outside agencies, including the State Treasurer's Office, Attorney's General Office, and so on and so forth. The Park District does have a cap of 12% mill increase per year. It looks like that will be something that could be a challenge moving forward, but I think there are some solutions around that. We are currently looking to other neighbors who have already merged their Parks and Rec programs, or Park District and recreational programs, to gain insights as to what they did and how that worked. There is a lot of discussion in and around doing asset allocations as it would relate to what kind of assets the Parks District might need if they were to take on the recreation programs, and ways in which we could provide them those assets. There has been no public meeting set to date because we are working through a lot of these logistical questions, and we also want to get to the staff and talk with them and get additional questions and answers addressed with the staff as well. So there will be a public meeting at some point in time on this Park District and Recreation program potential merger sometime in the future, so stay tuned for that. As it relates to the library consolidation, there have been several meetings that have occurred here as well. The latest information we've gotten comes from the Assistant Attorney General. There's an unofficial opinion that consolidation of the Ward County Library, or potential consolidation of the Ward County Library with the Minot Public Library. We'll create, in fact, a new library, and therefore it's possible a public vote may be required. We're doing more research on that front, but that will be something that the next committee will be looking into as well and addressing. I wanted to give you some numbers. It's been several months since I've talked about the city's workforce, so I thought it might be prudent to give you a couple of different numbers on the workforce front here, predominantly related to retention, recruitment, and vacancies. As it relates to retention, our turnover rate still is running a bit higher than we'd like. It's almost 11%, which does exceed the 2017 pace at this point in time last year. We've had 46 resignations to date of the workforce. The year-end projection based upon that trajectory is about 16.5% turnover rate. Just to put that in perspective, the year-end turnover rate last year was about 14.8%, so we are trending higher than last year's rates. Additionally, when it comes to vacancies, we have 21 FTEs, or full-time equivalent positions, that are open at this point in time. 12 of them are in public safety, the remainder of which are in engineering, planning, and public works, library, and finance. So we are finding it difficult in certain position areas to fill those positions. Some positions are running a lot longer in their open timeframes, and we would like to close those periods and also be able to recruit a little bit more effectively. We are on the recruitment front moving forward with several strategies, including expanded marketing. You might notice that there's a billboard that we have around town that we've put up targeting Minot Air Force Base staff, particularly firefighters and police staff, so that, you know, if they do get out, we would love to have them come work for us. We do know that they are a large talent pool in our community, and we want to tap that. We also have been providing on-site testing, revised testing standards, and establishing school pipelines, which means that we actually send our HR professionals down to various schools where police officers and firefighters are essentially learning, and offering them testing right at that facility to get them essentially right out of school and tell them about the opportunities that we have in Minot, so that they're more aware. That has been successful for us. We've had a few public safety officials come and work for the city, which has been good. So we're continuing to kind of push that envelope as it relates to being more active on our recruiting side. Just to update you on the landfill project is still going on. We have had taken several months to develop a citizens focus group. We've had about 7 or 8 of those meetings. Throughout those meetings, which have concluded now, we've developed a lot of information, and in particular performed some site assessments, which have identified 3 different options at this point in time. We are looking at holding a citywide public meeting on or around October the 9th. We haven't solidified that just yet. Our idea here is to hold a public meeting and then get to the City Council on October 30th or 31st to talk with you about what the public comments were, about how the focus group went, and about what the city's recommendation is going to be, and then get your opinion as it relates to the path forward on the landfill process. The citywide fall cleanup week is going to occur the week of October the 8th. It's going to be run just like all of the other cleanups that we've run to date. We will divide the city up into 4 sections, and alley collection will be moved to the street, though. And city sanitation customers are the only ones that are going to be served essentially by the fall cleanup week. So stay tuned for that. There'll be more information coming here in about a month's time. The mayor had already touched on the Water Topics Committee. This is where the legislators from around the state came in and talked with us about their thoughts and ideas and concerns associated with various water topics and legislation, projects, and whatnot. And we had an opportunity to show them the latest flood control project progress, which is very insightful for them as well. So that, I think, was a very well-attended meeting where a lot of good dialogue occurred. Just to update you on some major construction projects, we're running a good track record this particular year. We have just about all projects running on time at this point. The Broadway Bridge is on target to start pouring the bridge deck here in mid-September. Of course, we'll continue to work with MSU on their homecoming events. We do imagine that the Broadway Bridge should be finished early in November, and that's about the time frame that we had estimated back last year when the project was just breaking ground. Phase 1 and 2 and 3 of the flood control projects are continuing. We have a lot of underground work that's already being done on 4th Avenue. Concrete footings are being poured, which you've seen for some time now, on the Broadway pump station, and stabilization of the banks is also occurring as well. The contractor has completed the levee fill between US 83 and the Perkett Ditch, which is about 40% of the levee project for the Phase 2 and 3 portion. There's a lot of storm sewer work along 16th and 2nd Avenue that's going to impact traffic coming up. So stay tuned to the weekly traffic updates that our engineering department puts out. Lastly, the water treatment plant expansion is continuing. Crews are placing concrete currently, and next we'll be placing pipes and drain lines. As you all know, this is an important expansion project for our treatment plant so that we can allow for more water to be processed through the facility. That matters a lot as we expect to get a larger water supply, of course, through the NAWS project. So all work that's advancing the major milestones of the NAWS project. National Disaster Resiliency Project, probably the most notable accomplishment in the last month has been the ribbon cutting for Park South. This is the first project of all 13 NDR communities for affordable housing that's been completed. So we are not only setting the bar, we're setting the pace as it relates to completion of projects. Minot continues to outperform the other 13 project grantees, which we're very proud of, and we're intent on continuing that pace going forward. There were several contributors that helped this become such a tremendously successful partner. I've listed them down here, but certainly I want to give special props to Mr. Bruce Walker and Steve Gertz of Gertz Construction. They both did a fantastic job on this project, and it is a great example of the type of private-public partnerships that we'd envisioned and want to continue to move forward into the future. The International Economic Development Commission report is out, as you all know. There have been stakeholder meetings that have been occurring, and now we're talking about implementation of the findings in that particular report. So focus areas and interests were submitted to MADC as well as the CVB and the city through Mr. Zakian, as well as the Chamber of Commerce. There has been additional time requested. I think you heard that at the Committee of the Whole, and you'll be entertaining that again likely this evening. Some new groups are forming to advance some of this work. There is a desire to eventually develop a 501c3, which would allow us to then go after grants, which we're currently not eligible to do, for economic development grants. And so there needs to be some focus here on organizing our efforts as a community going forward. And of course, that's the discussion that's currently at hand. The mayor did touch on the White House visit. This was an invitation-only visit. The city of Minot represented one of about 3 or 4 different cities in the state of North Dakota, which represented the entire state on issues of importance associated to city or urban issues. The purpose of the conference was essentially the administration, the Trump administration, is seeking input from all sorts of cities and counties across the nation. We were about the 39th state, I want to say, 36th, 37th, 38th state that has sent representatives to the White House. The Trump administration is intent on reaching out to all states and have representatives from cities and counties from every state in the union report to the White House and give them the same type of feedback and provide additional information to them on how to tweak domestic programs and the domestic agenda. So it was extremely helpful for us to not only get information about what's going on at the administration level, but to also provide information that helps the president and his administration tailor domestic programs that suit the needs of cities and counties, as that was the interest that they had. The topic list here of discussion, I won't go through it, but as you can see, it's pretty meaty information. And the facilitators they set us up with were, state heads and assistant and deputy directors from the administration. So it was great to have access to those individuals who are, of course, in the know and leading the organizational changes throughout our country. Lastly, I wanted to just mention or remind you that we're going to start with department reports for the Committee of the Whole meetings in September, later this month. September 25th will be Fire and Police, September 26th, the Library and the Airport. I had mentioned at last month's meeting that we did want to have your blessing on instituting these department reports to get you more information about what's going on in each of the departments. It's just not enough time for me to spend with you in the 15 or 20 minutes I get to talk about everything that's going on in the city. So I think this will be a great way to introduce you to more detailed and specific information that's going on in the departments. I do want to make a recommendation as we've evaluated the schedule. I think we may be a little bit aggressive in putting 2 departments at each Committee of the Whole meeting. My recommendation would be for you to reconsider moving to 1 department report at each Committee of the Whole meeting. I am asking the departments to give about a 15 to 20-minute presentation. If we do 2 of these each Committee of the Whole meeting, that's just going to consume a tremendous amount of time. So because you made a motion and directed us to do 2 per Committee of the Whole meeting, I would love to ask for your reconsideration of this so that we can move to a 1 department report at each Committee of the Whole. That's what I'll end with this evening, unless you have any additional questions or thoughts for me.
At this time, does anyone have any questions or perhaps a motion to provide? Alderman Straight.
I'll begin. Thanks, Mayor Sitma. I guess I'll make a motion to move to 1 staff report per Committee of the Whole.
Motion by Straight.
Second.
Second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion on the motion? Alderman Walski.
Mayor Sitma, thanks. Mr. Berry, would your anticipation for September be that we still complete those 2 scheduled reports in September and then go to 1 following that? Is that the request?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Alderman Wolski. My request would be if we can begin the 1 per Committee of the Whole right off the bat, we're prepared to adjust the schedule accordingly. I just think it saves you a considerable amount of time. And given the time that we have and the information that's before you right now in process, I think it makes the most sense to move to that schedule immediately.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? As I think the motion, is enough at this point to embody exactly that. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion approved. Alderman Straight.
Thank you, Mayor Sitma. Tom, can you, have we conducted 46 exit interviews on the staff that have departed?
That's an excellent question, Alderman Straight. We have not. We try to conduct exit interviews when we can, but we cannot force the staff to participate in an exit interview. Some departments conduct in-house exit interviews, some do not. HR does try to reach out to folks and see if they'll be willing to come in and give us information or at least sit with us on an exit interview, but few staff do. So we would like to put more emphasis on exit interviews because that information is very valuable for us in determining what led to a person's resignation. Was it a better job opportunity? Was it a family change? Was it a life change? Was it a career change? We don't know some of these things, and that information is very important. So we are putting more effort to that, but we do not have 46 exit interviews to date.
Continuation.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Tom, one kind of follow-up about the cleanup on October 8th. I spoke with Mr. Sorensen today in Public Works. In the budget process, as you can imagine, we've had a number of folks on fixed incomes that have reached out with some concerns about the budget and services. And Mr. Sorensen was kind enough to share the kind of the valet service waiver that we have in place for some elderly folks in the community that are unable to get their garbage out. But part of that service is also if they want their lawn grass clippings and leaves collected. And in advance of that October 8th cleanup, if we could at least make the public aware, because I think there's a little misinformation that we've cut that possible service out. It's important that I think that we clarify that we are trying to have the best customer service in this community, and folks that are paying taxes have a right, especially if they have various abilities and disabilities, that the public is aware of the services that we're offering, and especially in advance of that October 8th cleanup. So that was just a thought. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Alderman Walski.
Mayor Sitma, thank you. Mr. Berry, also regarding the fall cleanup, I think I heard you suggest that the practice during that fall cleanup week will be to take items to the front curb rather than the alley service.
Correct.
Would you share the thinking behind that? I guess I'm a little concerned that when we ask for a specific once-a-year change in behavior that we're going to confuse people. I think folks have a tendency to put their garbage in a particular place, and when we ask them to do a different place, I'm worried that we're going to get a mixed bag of results and have things sitting in places where they aren't getting picked up.
Certainly. I can give you the information I have in regard to the improvements, and then whatever I don't fill in, Director Jonason can also fill us in as well. But we are trying to keep the alleyways open and accessible for folks. They are a pathway that people need to maneuver through or navigate through, so keeping large trash collection areas or keeping alleys clear of large trash collection is an important component for us. Also, it's difficult for us to get vehicles in and around to pick up that trash, and particularly the volumes of it. It is also a nuisance in the alleyways, and so the idea is if we can pull those out, and we're not talking about downtown alleyways, we're talking about other alleyways throughout the city. If we can pull that out in a way that allows us to more efficiently collect the refuse and keep the alleyways clear for accessibility purposes, that's essentially the type of improvement we're trying to bring, as well as keeping it just looking neat and clean for that matter.
Any further questions for the city manager? Alderman Olson.
Are you looking for a recommendation to move that last budget meeting? You talked about 2 different dates, so are you looking for a motion?
City Manager Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is a topic we have under other business at the end of the meeting. So you probably would just be discussing that at the end of the council meeting.
All right.
Any further questions? Yes, Alderman Padragula.
Just a comment, again, thanks to you and the Finance Department and the other staff for engaging in such proactive outreach regarding the budget. This is my 11th budget since 1998, and this, I think, is more outreach than all the others put together that I've been involved in. I think that's very important that people know that. I think it goes well with the transparency and the change in government we had a couple years ago. This really is exemplary in terms of the different media you've used and trying to get the message out. Not sure what the citizen reaction will be, but that really, I think, is very, very important, because the budget is probably our most important decision of the year, and to have people informed, to have a long process where they can learn what's happening, to solicit their input, I think is really, really, really critical. And I appreciate the efforts you've made.
Thank you.
Alderman Straight.
Mayor Sitma, one more, and Mr. Berry, thanks. I just wanted to talk about my role as the liaison to the NDR program and the Gathering Place. I think it's an exciting Thursday night ahead. It's Gathering 1.0, and for you young men in the audience that are working on your citizenship, I think it'd be a neat opportunity, if you don't know what's happening in the city, to look at Thursday night's event that's in downtown Minot. It's called Gathering 1.0. It's a neat possibility of how some areas of downtown can be revitalized and become a huge asset for this community. And so if you're not doing anything Thursday night after school, maybe you can come down and take a tour of a couple block radius of downtown and see some old pictures of what used to be in our community, and you can offer some feedback of some ideas you might have for that space. So I just wanted to touch on that while I had an opportunity. Mr. Berry, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Straight. Any further questions or comments? Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you.
That takes us to